Hey, welcome to Structure Fishing. I'm Jim Shell. Got a different video here for you today. Your complete fishing guide to Red Lake, Ontario. I initially was going to do a video to talk about fishing natural lakes or Canadian lakes, to talk about the three basic type of structures that we look for and about the fish species up here. I was going to use Red Lake as the example to do this video. Then I thought, you know what, let me expand it. My thought was to turn this into a complete fishing guide for Red Lake. I'll break it down in chapters, but I'm going to talk about a brief history, a little bit about Red Lake itself, and then talk about the lodges that are available to stay at up there, and then talk about the different fish species and then the structures. So, with that being said, let's give you a quick rundown on Red Lake itself. Red Lake is located in northwestern Ontario, otherwise known as that part of Ontario is known as Sunset Country. Most people that drive up to Red Lake are going to cross the border at International Falls, which is right here. Once you make it to International Falls, you're about a 4.5 hour drive to get to Red Lake. You cross over 11 over here, you get to 502, I think that is. Take that up to Dryden, which is about an 1.5 hour drive to make it to there. You go west to Vermilion Bay and then take 105, which is called Red Lake Road. And that's just all the way to pretty much ends at Red Lake. And this is about as far north as you can drive in this part of Ontario. Well, Red Lake is more known, I think, as a destination to drive to, since this is as far north as you can drive, and for that part of Ontario, to take a float plane trips, outpost resorts. But Red Lake itself is an excellent fishing destination. Just to give you some, for this part of Ontario, you've got a couple of popular lakes that people like to fish. One, of course, is Lake of the Woods. Then you also have Eagle Lake, which you drive by on your way to Red Lake. Eagle Lake is right here. You drive by the northern part of Eagle Lake. Just for comparison, Eagle Lake is really, really huge. It's about 950,000 acres. I'm sorry, Lake of the Woods is 950,000 acres, while Eagle Lake is 68,000 acres. And Red Lake, for comparison, is 150,000 acres approximately. Now, a lot of times you may hear is Red Lake as being part of, a 5-lake chain. There's Red Lake there, which is a lot of water. The other lakes, when you hear reference about the 5 lakes, is this lake here is called Keg Lake. And then you have Gull Rock Lake. And then you have, this is considered a separate lake called Two Island Lake, I believe. Yes, Two Island Lake. And then Ranger Lake, which is, I think, a shallow lake up here. My opinion, it's really 2 lakes, Red Lake and Gull Rock Lake. Like I said, you can boat between all these. Let me go to satellite image here where we're talking about the different lakes here. In 1948, I believe, well, first off, the flow. Water comes in from the north, or there's inlets here. The main inlet is a river right here, I believe, that comes in. So the flow goes from west or northwest down through here, down through Keg Lake, Gull Rock Lake, this Two Island Lake. And in 1948, I believe, they created a dam right here, and it raised the water level of the Red Lake system by about 4 feet from what I had read. And just a little interesting note here, Pipestone Lake, prior to that dam, I think was considered a separate lake, not part of the Red Lake system. When they raised it 4 feet, it got connected to Red Lake here. We'll talk about this more when we talk about lake trout, but when they did a study on lake trout, they found out that there are 2 strains of lake trout, one that was specific to Pipestone and one to Red Lake. So that just gives you a little bit more proof that before 1948, it was a separate fishery here in Pipestone. And just a little quick, Red Lake is known as a big gold mining area here. There's a huge gold rush here that started in the, I think in 1926, but it probably peaked in the most of the 1930s. Matter of fact, in eWikipedia, it says that Red Lake Airport, I believe this was in 1936, was the world's busiest airport in 1936. There was a huge gold rush up here. Matter of fact, a lot of the early gold mines were staked out on the west end of the lake, and from what I read, at one time they were considering making the west end of the lake, the town of Red Lake at the west end. But then I think a lot of gold mines were later staked in the mid 30s on the east end of the lake, so the town ended up being located on the east end of the lake here. Some other things, just like I say, just a quick brief of Red Lake here. On the west end of the lake, you have the West Red Lake Mining Museum. I think it's pretty cool. They have a website, which I will pop up here. It's westredlakemuseum.ca. And if you scroll, yeah, I like this stuff. It's pretty cool. There's what it's just a cabin they have here, and you go in. This is what it looks like in the inside of it. They've got a lot of history about of the mining on Red Lake, specifically the West End. They have a PDF. You go to here to self-guided tour. Click on this, download a PDF, and it tells you all about the. I got it right here. Let me just pull it up. There's the PDF. It just tells you about all the areas on the west end, a little history of the lake. I think it was really interesting. Hopefully you'll find it interesting too. But if you make it out to the west end of Red Lake, definitely check out this little museum here. But that's a quick little rundown. Well, one thing I'll also mention when I'm talking about Red Lake is cell phone coverage. Of course, you got the main cell phone towers located in the town of Red Lake, which is on the east end of the lake. So you're fishing the east end of the lake. You're gonna have reliable cell phone coverage. As you go west, it's going to get less and less. In my opinion, let me go back to this. A little bit easier to see it on this layer. When you make it to about the middle of the lake, in my opinion, the cell phone coverage is pretty reliable till about this point here. As you start getting further west of this point, it gets obviously less and less reliable. And by the time you get to Wolf Narrows, which is located right here, it's not reliable. It becomes very spotty, inconsistent. You'll find some random spots out here that you'll pick up a signal occasionally. But for those, some people like to get away and not have cell phone coverage, which is great, and some people can't live without it. So for those of you wondering about cell phone coverage, that's a story about that. And we'll get into the resorts now. Okay, let's take a look at the lodges on Red Lake. There are 6 lodges on the lake. Casey and I have stayed on 4 of the 6 lodges, so we're pretty familiar with them. I'm just going to give you a quick rundown. We'll take a look at each lodge individually. I'm not going to try to push one over the other. I'm just going to go over all the things that these lodges have to offer. Then you can make up your mind as to which one fits your needs the best. I put together this little sheet of the lodges here. You can just, I'm sure, pause this video and take a look at this, make your comparison. I put the cost in here, and if the lodge has an American plan or housekeeping plan. And for those of you that aren't familiar with it, American plan means that your meals are included. You get a breakfast in the morning. You usually then will pack a lunch. They'll provide you, peanut butter and jelly or cold cuts to make a sandwich that you pack for lunch, and then you return back to the lodge on the American plan for dinner. On the housekeeping plan, you are on your own. You bring your own food. You cook your own meals, and that's the difference between the American plan and the housekeeping plan. I put another column on here whether or not the price that they quote on their website includes a boat or not, and if it's for a 6-day or 7 days, and if gas is included and all that. Some places have tax included, some did not. The slash here means that For example, bow and arrows here, the American plan is $12.50. That is without tax. You add tax, it comes out to $14.12. And you can, so when you see two numbers there, that's what that means here. But let's take a look at each lodge individually now. Start from the west and work our way to the east. West here is right at the Narrows. Here is Bow Narrows Camp. This lodge is accessible via boat only. If you don't bring your own boat, then you will make arrangements. They'll pick you up at the downtown Red Lake here. And it's about I think about a 45-minute run roughly by boat and to get back over to their lodge here. And this is, out of all the lodges on Red Lake, this is the only one, I believe, that offers both American and housekeeping plans. So you can bring your own food up there, or you can have your meals at the lodge. Again, the only lodge up there that has both American plan or housekeeping plan. It's on the west end of the lake, so if you really love fishing the west end of the lake, it's a great place to stay at. Lodge, we work our way a little bit further east, is Black Bear Lodge. It's been around since 1951. It's one of the longest standing lodges on the lake. And this is a drive-in lodge. When you get to Red Lake, you drive on this road here. It's called 618. It sort of dead ends into this little, I think it's a gold mining little station here in Madison. And then you go on with a logging road that's called Suffolk Lake Road. And it's a, gravel road. It's, yeah, I don't know. I'm a little bit conservative driving down that road. I usually driving probably 25 miles an hour, but people can drive 30, 35, 40 maybe. But it's a gravel road, logging road that's about 10 or 12 miles down to get to Black Bear Lodge. So it is a remote drive-in lodge, which makes it a little fun. I believe it's considered what I would call a wilderness lodge. What I mean by that is you do not have showers or in your cabin or toilets. The cabins you have are just pretty much for sleeping only. There is a shower house, and a outhouse, but they're not located in the cabin. Casey and I have stayed here many times. Great place, and it's a American plan only. All your meals will be included. And other good thing about staying at Black Bear is you have access to portage lakes. They have a couple of boats on Suffolk Lake, which is over here. Suffolk Lake is an outstanding walleye lake, terrific walleye lake. When we stay at Black Bear, we go to Suffolk Lake for the week once every time we go there. But that's one good thing about Black Bear is you have access to some portage lakes. In some past years, they've had boats sometimes located on this lake here, and I think on this Bridget Lake, and I think even at Hong Lake, they have a boat there. If you're really adventurous, you want to row out on this little lake. It's a pretty unique trip. So you're looking for something more, somewhat wilderness, I'll call it. Black Bear is your place. And let's go further down. The next lodge is pretty much almost in the center of the lake. Between the west and the east end is called Ear Falls Lodge Fishing Camp here. It's actually located on Parker Lake. There's a little falls in between Red Lake and Parker Lake here. The lodge itself faces Parker Lake, but this is an American plan only, so all your meals are provided, and it is a boat-in camp. So if you're bringing your boat, you get there, or if not, again, they will make arrangements to pick you up, I believe, off the main marina here in downtown Red Lake area, and head over here. I have not stayed here. I have seen the lodge in person and also on the website. First off, all these lodges I'm going have really good websites. I'll put links down below so you can, if you're interested when I get more information, please check out those websites. And on Ear Falls, you have a choice of obviously fishing Red Lake, and they have boats on Parker Lake, so you can fish this Parker Lake as well too. And that again is American plan only. And then the next lodge, number 4 on the list, is Sunset Lodge here. Casey and I have stayed here a couple of times as well. It's I would say call this on the east end of the lake. Sunset Lodge is a housekeeping plans only. No American, just housekeeping plans. So you have to bring all your food with you. And a couple of things to note about Sunset Lodge. They starting in last year in 2024, they have, I believe, they're advertising that they've got some boats on Parker Lake. So if you're looking to get out to another lake, you can get on Parker Lake. Parker Lake, the big draw of the Parker Lake, I believe, is it's one of the first lakes up there that have smallmouth bass. Smallmouth bass are not native to any of these lakes up here. Somehow they got introduced, and they got a good population established in Parker Lake. Other than that, Parker Lake has, fair northern pike, fair walleyes. But you can fish Parker Lake or make arrangements to fish Parker Lake if you're staying at Sunset Lodge. And the other thing about Sunset Lodge is it is housekeeping only, but it's on Tuesdays typically, they offer a camp fish fry. So bring your fish, I think an hour before, and they fry them up for you, and they get everybody at the lodge together and do a camp fish fry. Other than that, it's housekeeping plan. And the next resort here, it's called Rod and Holly's Mackenzie Island Cabins. We have not stayed here. I have seen it from the shore. Casey and I have caught. Matter of fact, for some reason, right out in front of their cabin here, we caught a lot of nice walleyes for some reason in this area here. So I've seen this resort from the water, and it looks like a very nice resort, very well maintained. I can't give you any more specifics because I haven't stayed there, but they are a resort on Red Lake, so wanted to let you guys know about that as an option to stay at. Again, you can check their website for more information. And the last resort, number 6 on the list here, is Howey Bay. Casey and I have stayed here once when we fished the Fall Classic. That's the walleye tournament that they have every Labor Day weekend. We fished it twice, but anyway, they're right, in what I would call downtown Red Lake area. Here's that list of the lodges again, so you can just pause it, take a look at this, and you can see what the prices are for the American plan, the housekeeping plan, and if that package includes a boat or not, if it's 6 days, 7 days. Something to think about too, if you're comparing all these resorts, is if you have gas included or not. You can see a couple of resorts like Bow and Arrows and Black Bear have gas included for camp boats and personal boats. Eagle Falls has gas included for camp boats. The other resorts, Sunset, Howey, and Rod and Holly's, you got to pay extra for your gas as you go. I know Sunset Lodge has gas available. I'm not sure, but I think Howey Bay has gas. If not, you're really close to the marina to get gas. And I'm not sure about Rod and Holly's, if they have gas available to buy at the resort or not. And other things, as I mentioned here, bow and arrows, they will reimburse you if you buy a conservation license. So that's something you may want to think about. A little perk bow and arrow gives you. Black Bear, as I mentioned earlier, their little perk, if you want to call it, is that you have access to usually a few portage lakes, specifically Suffle Lake, which is a dynamite lake to go to. It's always fun taking a little portage trip too. Eagle Falls, you have access to Parker Lake. Sunset, as I mentioned, has a weekly camp fish fry, and they also have access to Parker Lake. And that's it. So I hope this helps you take a look and make a decision on what lodge you would like to stay at. Hey, another place I wanted to mention, it's not a resort, but it's a house. On Mackenzie Island, you can rent the Mackenzie House. Looks pretty neat. If it's a family going up or a nice group, you can rent a house on Mackenzie Island here. Take a look at the website for the prices and the availability, but that's another option. If you don't want to stay at a resort, you can rent a house on Mackenzie Island. Okay, when is the best time to go up the Red Lake and go fishing? There is no bad answer, the wrong answer to that. The walleye opener is the third Saturday of May, and that could be as early as May 15th or as late as May 21st. So the first 3-4 weeks that these resorts are open, are usually their busiest time of the season. A lot of people like to go up early season because the fish are spawning or just finished spawning and they're still in the shallows. And fishing for all species could be really good. Your lake trout are going to be shallow. Matter of fact, most of the lake trout are caught accidentally why people are fishing for walleyes in northern pike. The pike spawn right after ice out, so these big pike are shallow in these shallow bays, as I mentioned earlier, and they're going to be in there for a good 2, 3, maybe even 4 weeks. Same thing with the walleyes. So like I say, all these resorts are typically booked to their capacity the first 3 or 4 weeks that they're open. I got this little chart here that they keep track of when ice out is in Howie Bay, and you can see that it's been as early as I want to say April 20th. I think is the earliest I see on here, and the latest date that I see on here is May 23rd, I believe. So you got a whole month as early as April 20th and as late as May 23rd. But looking at this chart, if I had to say the average ice out date is probably what it was in 22 and 23, about between the 10th and the 14th of May. Looking at this thing is what I would say the average is. So the third weekend in May is you're typically going to be just a few days or a week after ice out, and like I say, those fish are in the shallows. But most of these resorts are usually closing up by the end of September. Like I say, I think Bone Narrows and Sunset stay open quite a bit later, and probably Howie Bay as well too. But like again, there's no bad time to come up here. Early, right when the opener is in the third week of May, all the way till September, October, as late as you can get in there. The latest we ever fished up here was Labor Day weekend for the Fall Classic, and that's still summer patterns. Usually about the middle of September is when you start seeing change coming up, and you get cold days up here, and then I'd probably say by the towards the end of September, you're definitely in probably a fall pattern. Summer pattern is over by then, and if I'm not sure when ice up is, but if I had to guess, I'd probably say um, ice up could be as early as middle end of November. But yeah, anytime you can get up there and fish. Hey, let's go over the boat ramps on Red Lake. So if you're bringing your own boat up, I'll show you where all the boat ramps are. When you get into the town of Red Lake, this on this map here, this A is for access or a boat ramp. Not too many people use this one because there really isn't much parking here. Let me pull up a satellite image here. Here we go. There's the city of Red Lake, and on the west side of the bay here of Howie Bay, there's a boat ramp. Where is it here? I think it's right here. Is a boat ramp. As you can see, why it's a nice concrete ramp, but you don't have a dedicated parking lot. Yeah, I think you've got to park on a street, so it is a boat ramp here. I don't think it gets used very much. I guess why I'm on this end of the lake, I'll go over the other one. There's a golf course. If you guys anyone likes golfing, they got a little golf course up here. And I believe that this is an access point here as well. I'd never launched there, but I believe that's an access point there. And another access point, I never launched it, is right here by this ferry here. Yeah, right here. Oops, it even I'm not even going to try to pronounce that. Boat ramp right here. I never use it. I think those boat ramps don't get used very often. The main boat ramp on the lake, where in my opinion probably 90% plus, if not 95% of the people launch out of this boat ramp right here, St. Paul's Bay, which is located really close to Sunset Lodge. Just to give you an idea where that boat ramp is at. That's probably, like I say, other than one time I launched downtown or in the city of Red Lake, all the other times I've ever launched my boat, well, we've always launched out of St. Paul's Bay over here. But that's it. You really don't have a lot of boat ramps on this lake, and it's not very crowded. You get, I don't know, it's hard to say. I mean, people that boat to these camps, like Bow and Arrows, Black Bear, or Eagle Falls, they all park their vehicles here for the week mostly. if they're bringing a boat. And when I was talking about the lodges, a lot of these lodges, when they boat in, they pick you up at, I think they usually pick you up off the docks at this Red Lake Marina here. And they have a deal where you can park somewhere around the marina area here too. If you're wondering where you're going to leave your vehicle and all that for these boat in places. But that's the recap of the boat ramps. All right, before we get into species and structures, let's just go over the maps of the lake that are available. I've got Garmin up here. As many of you may know, Garmin unfortunately changed their website on viewing these maps. It's not as nearly as good as it once was, but oh well. I want to clarify one thing. Garmin claims if I zoom in here, let me go into fishing here. Garmin says, "Oh, we've got an HD map, a high definition map, 1-foot contours." That is a bunch of BS. The only thing I'm not happy with Garmin slash Navionics is they make these 1-foot high definition maps, or they claim they're high definition maps, and they are not. All they do is interpolate the standard definition data and just guess what it would look like if it was an HD map. There's the regular map, and there it is in HD. Now, what makes it even more confusing, let me just go in a different area here. Let's go in this Slate Bay here. That's what it looks like in their so-called HD, and that's the regular definition map. All they do is just interpolate that data and just basically, well, based on what it looks like regular map, this is what we think it looks like HD. And it gives you a misleading thing. And what actually makes it more misleading is users can upload data to Navionics, and Navionics will update parts of the map. Like you can see over here, you got something goofy going on here, and that's parts where users may have updated data to Navionics and they added it to the map here. And I found out from my own experience in uploading information to Navionics years ago, they take that data and they change it a little bit. So it's really not reliable. The only thing it's good for, it'll tell you that there may be some kind of structure situation going on here, but it's doubtful that it looks like what it does here. So bottom line is this HD map that Navionics gives you, don't use it. Not worth it at all. You're better off sticking with this. And I don't know of any other company, a map service, like Lake Master or anyone else that actually has this lake mapped yet. Maybe parts or sections of it. But the best map to tell you where there are possible structure situations are at is, let me bring it up here. This map that I bought several years ago, I believe you can still buy these up in Red Lake. I'm not sure who makes this map, but in my opinion, this is much better than Navionics maps or anything else because they've got this thing color shaded and they got scattered depths written on here. So you can look at this map. Let's for example, let's look at this area here. Well, we got a really good indication here that we've got some humps here, and we got a reef in this area here. This map here, they mark the reefs, and you can see areas where, like I say, you've got a hump here. There's indications of a hump here. You got indications of a bar coming off here. This map is much, much better than anything that Navionics or these other companies produce. But I would recommend you buy the Navionics or other chart plotters maps of the Canada series here. Reason being is, even though that the HD maps, I don't buy it for that reason. I buy it because it will give you an accurate outline of the shores, the shoreline, and the islands and everything else. So I would still recommend you buy it because if you don't buy it, if you go up there from the U.S. and you don't have the Canadian series installed on your chart plotter, you're just going to have, you're not going to have accurate shoreline whatsoever. And I like having that accurate shoreline so I know where I'm at. I'm not going to get lost. So I still recommend doing that. But without a doubt, when it comes to fishing and finding my spots to fish, finding structure situations, this is the map I want to use. Again, look at it over here. You got indications that you have a
hump structure situation here. You got indications that you could probably have a good bar sticking out over here. Um, it's going to show you the reefs, and it's also give you some other information about historical areas, you know how to navigate through the lake. Which let me get into that next navigation. This lake is any shallow reefs, potential hazards. Red Lake Association does an excellent job. They've got buoys out there showing you the shallow spots. In all my years going up there, I only hit a reef once, and it was really my fault. It was a reef that was marked. They had a marker on it. Let's just look at this one here. They had a marker on it, and I was just going really slow around it, mapping it, and that's the only time I ever hit a reef. But you can see that, like here's another buoy marking this reef here. They even actually have the buoys marked down here, so you don't hit them. But let's talk about navigating the lake. They have day markers, and at night they light up to help you navigate the lake. So let's go from, if you're traveling east to west, you launch out here, you'll see, and they're quite visible. At each narrows where you pass by, you'll have a day marker here. You can see it here. And I'll give you a rundown of the lake as well, too. As you go through this area, this is called the Fisher Narrows. So when you're headed out over here, you can see this thing from, a good mile, couple miles away. You'll see this marker. Just aim straight forward, and you have a clear shot going through these narrows. The first set of narrows, again, is called Fisher Narrows. And then when you get to here, you'll see the next day marker here. You go through that, and that's called the Middle Narrows. And then when you get to that point, and again, once you clear that, you'll see this day marker out here. You just make a straight shot for that, and that is called the Wolf Narrows. Then and then you have the option of either going around the island to the north or going around the island to the south. I think most people go to the south, but you can go through the north. There is a markers here to keep you in the center. There's a shallow bar, a reef that comes out over here. But anyway, the next set of markers as you come over here is called the West Narrows. You'll see a marker here. You hit through there. That will guide you through the West Narrows, and then you're on the west end of the lake. This map is definitely the map you want to use to help to find your fishing structures. Like look at this area over here. You got it's showing a 21 foot. I don't know what that says, 84 foot maybe, and 25 foot. Well, if you're a structure fisherman, you've got a structure situation over here. Yeah, this map is perfect for helping you identify here. You got a marker over here, this shallow reef over here. There's another reef over here, but you can see these reefs, or you can tell by looking at this map that, different shading of the depths here, that you got a structured situation here. There is a legend over here that tells you, and this is a fairly accurate map. Each one of these basins, I call them basins. Like you got the Pipestone Basin, will have about 130 feet of water. Trout Bay Basin, about 120, 130. This is called Potato Island Basin. You got like 130 feet. They all have about 130 feet of water. This basin here, 130 feet. Like I say, every basin has about 130 feet of water. You got this Slate Bay. It's got a lot of deep water up in here. But yeah, this map is really good. What I did here, it doesn't come like the entire lake on one map here. I scanned it, and I think the split is roughly right here, the west half and the east half, and I just stitched them together so we can look at it as a whole here. But this is the map that you want to have in your possession to help you identify and find these structures when you're out there fishing. And it's a great map for navigation too. And like I say, it has all the names on here. Slate Bay, Mackenzie Island. It has, the island names on here. Fisher Islands, St. Paul Bay. Great map to have here. So you head up there. I don't think you can buy this online or that I know of, but when you get up to Red Lake, you can probably stop at the marinas, and I think the resorts even. If I'm not mistaken, I think Black Bear has this map available in a smaller size, but has it available, and I believe Sunset also has this map available. I'm not sure about the other resorts here, but I think you can always stop into the the marina here, and I believe pick up this map as well too. All right, let's go over the structure situations we're going to find in a natural lake. When it comes to natural lakes, it's pretty simple with structure situations. We're going to have three main types of structures. We're going to have bars, humps, and saddle situations, and I'll show you an example of all three of those right now. Here in bars, this is just to illustrate, a bar is just a break line extending out from the shore, and bars can vary, as we all know, in different shapes and sizes. Here, this is a sort of a long, narrow bar. This is sort of a wider bar with a little point to the end of it. You can have a bar with fingers coming off of it. So bar is just a break line extending out from the shoreline. And again, bars come in all different kinds of shapes and sizes. So we have bars and humps. We get a hump up here. Right, here's a picture, elevation view, I should say, of a hump. Humps come in different sizes and shapes as well too. Humps are going to be a very common structure you're going to find out in Red Lake. Humps, or you could call them reefs as well too. You can have some in shallower water, some a little deeper, and some in very deep water. But when you are fishing a hump, more than likely you want to concentrate your efforts on the side that goes to the deepest water off that hump. That's usually going to be where you're going to contact the fish. Of course, you're going to want to check all over the top of the hump. When the fish do migrate on top of the hump, they're going to be all over the top. But if you want to, where you want to concentrate your efforts is where that hump drops off to the deepest water in the lake over here. And then the next structure, that situation we're going to find is saddles. You have a couple different types of saddle situations here. Here, you've got a shoreline bar, and out here we have a hump. And the hump isn't too far from the bar, and at that area in between the hump and the bar right here is a saddle. A different type of saddle situation is, this is out of Buck's home study course, where you have two deep bodies of water that come together, and in between those two deep sections of water creates a saddle situation as well. So I'm going to show you an actual map of Red Lake. Let me pull it up here. This is actually, I made this map with my Garmin unit, and I just took screenshots and stitched them all together so I can see this map here. I think I used this a few years ago in a presentation I made. This here is at the Wolf Narrows. I'll give you this spot here. You can see we have it, because it's so narrow here, it almost creates like a channel situation right here, but you've got a bar here and a bar here. This would actually be a deep water saddle here. But coming out here, you've got a bar coming off the point here. You have a hump out here. You got a saddle situation here. And you have another hump over here with a deep saddle situation here. And you have several fingers coming off this hump. This structure situation is pretty much impiles all the structure situations you're going to find in a natural lake or in Red Lake. You're going to have bars, humps, and saddles. So when we're fishing Red Lake, we're talking about fishing bars, humps, and saddles. Let's take a look at the map of Red Lake. And let's just recognize on this basic map where we can find some of these structures. Right here, we can see that there's indications that we have a hump out here, a hump over here. Here you can see that there's a good indication we've got a nice bar coming off this island here. And over here, you can see between these two deep bodies of water, we have a saddle situation here. You've got the deep water basin and the deep water of the bay here. In between here, you got a saddle situation. So you got saddles, bars, and humps. Those are the three structures that we're going to be talking about. We're going to find out here. All right, let's get into our first species here, the lake trout. I really can't tell you about the lake trout without going back in time and giving you the history so you get a better understanding of the fishery out here on Red Lake. Back in the 80s, the lake trout bite was just on fire. I read that there were guides as far away as Eagle Lake who were driving their people up here and fishing for lake trout because the bite was so good. A lot of numbers and quantity of fish were being caught. Most of the lake trout fishing back then, it was all primarily on the west end of the lake here. This basin here, which is called Potato Island Basin,
and in Pipestone was the majority of the lake trout, and some in this trout bay here too. But the bite was on fire, and someone had posted that they think what had happened was smelt got introduced into the system. They are not native to Red Lake, but smelt got in here, and they think that with the introduction to smelt, that the lake trout were just gorging themselves and packing on the weight and getting really big. And fishing was great, and then it just back in the late '80s, around early 1990s, it just stopped. People weren't catching any lake trout anymore, and that went on for about 10 years. They were speculating the reasons why, that they found out that they weren't, well, besides overfishing, over harvesting, they think that they weren't getting the reproduction anymore. They were finding out specifically in Pipestone Bay that the trout did not seem to be reproducing that well. So things changed in early 2000. I want to say approximately 2002. They changed the fishery to catch and release only, trying to build back the population. And they implemented a pretty heavy stocking program. And I'm not sure, I believe it was around the early 2000s when the stocking program started. And the ministry started a stocking program. I'm not sure exactly when it started, or I believe it was early 2000s when they implemented the catch and release only. And they every fall they would actually drive to Black Bear Lodge, since Black Bear Lodge is the farthest road you can drive. They had permission from the owners to in the fall to go there, and here's a picture. Every fall they would go there and out of Black Bear and load up bring their boats over here and load up the fingerlings and stock them. And they stocked them in again Potato Island, Pipestone, and I don't know for sure, but I would think the Trout Bay, since that's known to hold lake trout as well. And ever since then, fast forward to now, the lake trout fishing is fantastic. It is still a catch and release fishery only, and it's always been barbless hooks. And just recently, in the past year, they updated the regulations, so you can only, when you're fishing for a lake trout, it has to be a single barbless hook. Now, when you do catch lake trout out there, just a little quick thing while I'm thinking about it here is all the stocked lake trout, they clip a fin, and they each year they vary which fin they clip. So there's a way to look up. Then if the right back fin is clipped or the left one, you can tell what year that fish was stocked in. So if you catch a lake trout out there, if it's got a clipped fin, you can tell that it's a stocked fish. If there's no clipped fins, then it's a natural fish. I would say we always, every time we catch one, we always check to see if it's stocked or not. I would say probably 75, 80% of the lake trout we catch are clipped, which would indicate that they're stocked fish. Now, all the lake trout fishing is done on the west end of the lake in Pipestone. This is fast forward to today now. Pipestone, Potato Island, and Trout Bay. Now, I did read a story that I thought was really interesting and fascinating. This goes back to 2012. There was a guy that was ice fishing in Gull Rock Lake, which is all the way out here, and he caught a lake trout, and it was had one of those tracking tags on it by the DNR. And they found out from that tracking tag that this one particular fish, and I find that amazing, would spend most of its life in Gull Rock Lake until probably midsummer, when the temperatures in Gull Rock Lake is not as deep as Red Lake. And lake trout are very temperature sensitive fish. They like to be in that 50-degree range pretty much year round if possible. So when summertime would come and the water would get too warm, they said that fish tracked 31 miles in one day, that it left Gull Rock Lake and in midsummer went 31 miles through this entire system here and went all the way back into Pipestone Bay. And I'm assuming stayed in Pipestone Bay until it spawned, which is probably, I would guess, sometime in October, and then went all the way back to Gull Rock Lake again. Now, I think that's a fluke fish, or not many fish, I should say. I haven't heard of one fish in the last 15, 20 years that have been caught east of the Wolf Narrows. Not saying that there's no lake trout here. A matter of fact, I'm really surprised that this basin here doesn't hold lake trout. It has a lot of reefs, deeper reefs, humps that have a lot of this 45, 55, 60-foot depths that the Lakers just love in the summertime. Matter of fact, when I was up here this past summer, I, it was the structures look so fantastic for lake trout down there. I would think if there were lake trout in this basin, they would have had been there. And I spent about an hour trolling and seeing if I can find one. Nothing. But for some reason, all of the lake trout that are caught are all in the west end of the lake. If you know, I'm curious if someone knows of recent years catching lake trout east of Wolf Narrows, let me know. I'm really curious about that. But the vast majority of lake trout today are all caught on the west end of the lake. Again, they're caught in Pipestone. Majority of them are caught in Potato Island, then Pipestone, and a few come out of Trout Bay. Now, when I'm fishing for lake trout, we've got two ways to present our lures: casting and trolling. And when I'm casting, I should say, deep water jigging, because these lake trout, well, first off, when I'm up there fishing, I'm up there when the lake trout are in their full summer pattern. And once, as I said earlier, they're temperature, cold water species. They like the cold water, preferably over water around 50 degrees deep. And in the spring, they're up shallow. A lot of people are catching them accidentally while they're fishing for walleyes and northern pike. But by the time they hit their summer pattern, most of these lake trout are going to be in the depths of about 45 to 60 feet of water. So when you're fishing 45 to 60 feet of water, I'm either, when I'm jigging that deep, I'm using a pretty good sized jig head here, about at least half, typically 3/4 to 1 ounce to get down that deep. And lake trout just seem to like anything white. I typically use a white twister. I've seen people use, white tube jigs. Doesn't, whatever you're using, as long as you can get the right depth and speed control. And the depth we know is going to be in that 45 to 60 foot range. So I like using this style of jig head here. I don't know how well you can see that, but it's sort of narrow, so it doesn't have a lot of resistance in the water, which means it's going to drop fast. So you can get it to the bottom quick, and you can just, in lake trout are trout that are bottom orientated. So when I'm fishing for lake trout, I'm concentrating on the bottom or within a few feet off the bottom. So I'm dropping this to the bottom in 40 to 60 foot depths and just jigging it. And again, I'm using structure as my guide. I'm fishing deep water bars and humps out here. And before I show you some general spots here, the other presentation then is trolling. And when you're trolling 45, 60 feet of water, you have to have a single barbless hook. So I'm using a Dipsy. Dipsy divers are a fantastic tool to give you the correct depth control for fishing for these lake trout. Years ago, we had so much success up here using Dipsies. I actually put a video. I'll put a link on it. Or actually, let me see if I can just find it right now. Here's that video I put out there, catching lake trout with Dipsy divers, depth and speed, Red Lake, Ontario. For some reason, this happens to be one of my most popular videos, over 15,000 views 5 years ago. But check out this video where I talk specifically all about using Dipsy divers, and I even got footage on here about us catching lake trout out there at Red Lake. Once we started using Dipsy divers out here, we were catching just a lot of lake trout. Matter of fact, this goes back to about 28. Right now, today, it's got such a great population of lake trout. You can catch quantity and quality out there. We had one day out here, this was going back a few years ago, where we fished for lake trout just on and off. I mean, Casey and I would fish for walleye. Casey loves walleye fishing. We fished for walleyes, and then the bite would slow down. I said, let's get a few Lakers. We'd get out the Dipsies. We'd get like 3-4 Lakers in literally 30 minutes. Then Casey's, all right, let's go back to the walleyes. We do that. Well, this one particular day, we probably, total time spent fishing for lake trout was probably not even 2 hours. And in that 2 hours, we boated 18 lake trout, which is phenomenal. I'm not saying that to brag, not. I'm just telling you what a great fishery this is.
And I told Casey, I'm like, boy, you realize that if we spent all our time fishing lake trout in one day, we probably could have easily caught 40 to 50 or even more lake trout in that particular day. Then, as it turns out, just this past year in 2024, one of the guests that stayed at the Black Bear Lodge reported catching, I think it was right around 50 lake trout in one day. So, which I'm not surprised. It has such a tremendous population of lake trout right now. Matter of fact, in 20 March of 2023, I'm going to show you here. There was this people were ice fishing up in Red Lake. Not sure exactly where this fish was caught. I'm sure it was on the west end, but they caught this monster lake trout. It was 47 and 3/4 inches long, and it was estimated to be 57 pounds. Here's another picture of it. Just an incredible lake trout. You can see it got cut up here. It was so big they had trouble pulling it through the hole. Matter of fact, it got gashed up there getting it through the hole, but the fish unfortunately died because uh, of being squeezed through the hole like that. But it just goes to show you what a awesome fishery that is. Look at that, a 47 and 3/4 inch, 57-pound lake trout. And I think the Ontario record, if I'm not mistaken, was caught out of Lake Superior, which was 63 pounds, I believe. But this was 57 pounds. So today, right now, the fishery here, lake trout fishery here, is outstanding. And most of the lake trout, nearly all the lake trout, are caught again on this west end of the lake, in Potato Island, and up here Pipestone, and also in Trout Bay. Now, I'm not gonna. I'm only gonna give a few specific spots throughout this presentation, and the spots I'm going to give you, what I'm going to call our community spots. So I'm really not giving anyone's spot away, but I would probably say the majority of the lake trout fishing is done around this Potato Island. You'll see. I'm seeing a lot of boats in the last few years come out here. A lot of boats from town and probably other resorts coming out here for this lake trout fisheries since it's so good. And most of those boats are fishing right here at Potato Island. I've got this whole area mapped here, but there's a really nice deep bar that comes out here, right over here, and it's a lot of 45 to 55 to 60-foot depths, and just you could fish this either trolling dipsies or jigging it with you know jigging it. You'll get lake trout here for sure. Back in this area here is also fantastic lake trout. Matter of fact, back over here, I'm going to give you this real quick. This area back over here, I've caught every single species of fish in Red Lake back here. I've caught big northern pike, walleyes, lake trout, burbot, and whitefish, all back in this area here. But your lake trout spots are going to be around this Potato Island. There's like I say, a deep water structure out over here, and up in Pipestone. Um, yeah, the lake trout spots are really no secret here. You got lake trout off of this structure here and off of this structure here. The only spot that I have not caught lake trout out of is Trout Bay. I'm told that they do get lake trout out of here. I checked that out a couple years ago, and I really wasn't impressed with the structure situations in there. There probably are some lake trout in there, but I wouldn't spend much. If you're looking for numbers of fish, I would definitely check out this Potato Island basin and up here in Pipestone. Let me show you a few pictures of the trout we've caught out here recently in the last couple of years or so. Casey with one, I believe that was just that might have been 2 years ago. But the trout fishery is just amazing. There's another laker. We get them consistently each week. We go up there up till about 34, 35, 36 inches. I think our biggest was about 38 inches a couple of times. Here I am. I'm pretty sure this was just this past year. I think that was out of Pipestone. But you can see that it's got an awesome lake trout fishery. Again, catch and release only, single
barbless hook if you're lake trout fishing. It's a great fishery, and go out there with get yourself some dipsies, learn how to run them. If you're fishing in the summer, again, concentrate on that 45 to 60 foot depths. Or if you're jigging, get some 3/4 ounce, 1 ounce jigs with some white twisters or white tube jigs, and jig on these deep structures that are out here, and I'll guarantee you, you're going to get lake trout. Okay, let's talk about northern pike for Red Lake. In my opinion, northern pike is the species that has the best trophy potential for Red Lake. Matter of fact, let me pull up over here. The biggest pike that I've read about coming out of Red Lake, it was posted. This was posted on Black Bear's website. Their camp record, I'm not sure how long ago this was a 52-inch northern pike. And just to show you how good the fishing is up there, at Black Bear in 2023, they had 53 pike that measured 40 inches plus that year. So big pike, and all these resorts, you go on all their Facebook pages or their websites, you'll see every year people consistently catch pike up to 42, 43, 44, 45, even 46 inches on a regular basis. So in my opinion, out of all the species up at Red Lake, northern pike is the biggest trophy potential you have for these species. But they are, I don't want to say hard. They're not easy to come by. You got to work for them. Now, obviously in the spring, that's the most popular time that people are fishing for big pike. In the spring, right after ice out, these fish are shallow. They're forced to be shallow to spawn. So you see a lot of these big pike caught in early spring. And the places you want to target early in the season are going to be where these fish spawn, or close to where these fish spawn. And you're going to be looking for, big shallow bays. That's where these fish are going to spawn. I would guess starting at the west end of the lake here, I would guess that this bay up here is probably a prime spot to find big pike early in the season. These two bays up here, even this bay up here, any big shallow bay. And a key is going to be if that bay has any kind of inlet creek coming into it. You can see there's a couple inlet creeks in this one. You're going to have a little bit of flow, a little bit warmer water coming in, but these shallow bays are going to be great, and if they have a creek coming into them, they're even going to be better. So I think these would be all prime spots to target early season pike, big pike. A really right where Black Bear is at, this bay over here. This is actually nicknamed Herman's Bay. I'm not sure how long ago. I believe this was like in the 50s, maybe even the 60s. There was a monster pike caught back here. The guy's name was Herman, so this got nicknamed Herman's Bay. But it's a shallow bay, a good spawning spot. Matter of fact, every spring, right after the season opens or guests come up, big pike are caught on a regular basis right off the docks here at Black Bear. This is just a great early season pike fishery, place to go catch big pike. Again, you're looking for shallow bays. Let's just take a look and see where we can find some other ones here. I'm guessing you got a nice big shallow bay here. I would think that this is a good spot to get some big pike early season. Way up at the very far north end of the lake, you got shallow bay here. I'm guessing this is some really good early season pike fishing up there. Well, it looks like you got a really big shallow bay here. That's probably a really good pike magnet as well too. But you want to target these shallow bays early in the season. Now, it gets a little tricky finding these fish consistently as you get into the summer pattern. Yeah, we've caught fish. You get back home or back in the Wisconsin area, lakes that I fish for big pike, they school, and you can usually catch them consistently on these deep break lines. I really haven't found that to be that consistent up here in Red Lake. They seem to be, you catch big pike. They're not uncommon in the summer. Every week, somebody at camp will usually get a solid 40 incher. I mean, we get plenty of pike, 35 to 40 inches. And each week we stay up there. We usually get, one or two that are right around 40, a little bit over 40 inches. Um, but in later in the summer, once they leave these shallow bays, a lot of them are caught while you're fishing for walleyes. Matter of fact, on average, every week we're up there fishing for walleyes at least once during the week and as many as 3 times during the week. We've had a big pike grab our walleyes as we're reeling them in. Here's one that Casey had. We were fishing. He had a walleye grab his pike. I'm sorry. He had a pike grab his walleye, and it held on to it all the way to the boat, and it dropped it. And luckily, Casey had a rod rigged up with a big, really big swim bait for pike. So in his first cast, he threw it out in the direction the pike swam off in, and sure enough, the pike turned around and hit it, got it in the boat, and I can't recall. I think it was a solid 40, 41-inch pike, but a lot of them, like I say, are caught while you're walleye fishing. They'll grab your walleye. Like I say, you're up there for a week. On average, it should happen to you once during a week, and it happened to us 3 times in one week, where we had a big pike grab our walleye as we're reeling it in. A lot of them seem to come accidentally while you're fishing for walleyes. But we have targeted pike out there, and we've done pretty good. Now, I'm a big believer of big baits, big fish, and when I'm trolling for pike, I'm using big, big, deep diving crankbaits, and I'm fishing usually, as Buck says, the home of the fish is deep water. The bigger they are, the more reluctant they are to leave that deep water sanctuary. So I'm typically targeting these big pike, 15 feet. The shallowest is probably 15 feet all the way down to 25, 30 feet that we're catching these big, big fish. And I'm using, big crankbaits to get down that deep. I really don't think color matters much. I haven't found any pattern to say that there's a hot color. I think the key thing is getting the bait in front of the fish, getting the right depth control and speed in front of his fish. So we've done really good catching big pike, trolling these big deep crankbaits on structure is the other key. We're trolling deep break lines on structures. The bigger the structure, the more going on in that structure, the better chance you have of it you having pike. And just this past year, Casey got his biggest pike ever. Let me pull it up here. This fish was 45 inches long. Casey was trolling this big structure that we've caught a lot of big fish out in the past, and this thing was 45 inches long that he put his bunny on, caught the fish. Great fish. I got banged up somehow here. That wasn't from us catching it or him catching it, but fish was released successfully. But these big pike, like I say, once you get in a summer pattern, they're a little, it's hit or miss. There's only one time I was out here fishing it. I tied into a school of pike. It was off of end of a deep bar, and they were deep, so trolling was the best presentation for depth and speed. So each pass I made with that deep bait going across there, I want to say I caught at least 7, 8 pike. They were all 36 inches and plus, and I lost a couple of big ones too. But I would say some consistent spots that we see big pike are going to be anywhere you have a neck down area, like here, the West Narrows here, you know, and pike are migratory fish. They'll migrate. They move. Throughout a chain lakes like this. They'll be up here another month. They could be down here. Then you can have a good population over here. So anywhere you got a neck down area, like for example in this West Narrows, all the fish migrating from the west end of the lake towards the east end of the lake are all going through this narrow. So every time you see a narrows area, that's a good spot to concentrate for pike as well as other species like walleyes as well. The Wolf Narrows area here is another great spot for big pike. Actually, if I had to pick one spot to concentrate for big pike, I would probably pick this Wolf Narrows area. But we've caught big pike throughout the system here. I wish I can get more specific, but I mean they're pretty much scattered. I mean we fished all these reefs over here, and we've caught pike off of every single one of them. But that's it. But again, in my opinion, I think the biggest trophy potential this Red Lake has is for pike. When you can catch pike up to 43, 44, 45, 46 inches, that's massive pike. Matter of fact, a very well-known YouTuber, let me find it here, Canada, Jay Siemens. He did a video. This was ice fishing. It was last year, late season ice, middle of April. He went out to Red Lake, and he said it was some of the best, biggest pike fishing, best pike fishing he ever had, and that was under the ice. And I'm sure, in the video you watch it, they were fishing shallow bay areas. So you know that they were in some of these shallow bays. I don't know which one it was, but it could have been here. I'm sure it was one of these bays that I pointed out to you. But again, early season is your best chance for big trophy pike fishing these shallow bays. And, after they spawn, it seems like they'll stay there for, depending on the weather, at least a week, up to 3 or 4 weeks before they move back out into the main lake again. Again, once they get out into the main lake, we catch them a lot accidentally while we're fishing for walleyes. But a lot of people, we don't target big pike very often. Um, I catch them all the time when I'm trying, and I told you about big lures, big baits. Let me pull up those. Yeah, I'm a big believer of big baits, big fish. And I'm catching big walleyes when I'm trolling these big baits too. Matter of fact, well, I'll mention it when we get into walleye singing, but my biggest walleye I caught out of Red Lake, 30 and a half inches, came off on one of these big baits like here. So, again, in the summertime, the only advice I can give you if you're trying to catch some big monster pike is don't be afraid to throw big baits out there. And, find a deep structure, deep reefs, um, and you'll catch some, hopefully, you get some big pike here. But you have really good trophy potential for northern pike out here. All right, let's talk Red Lake walleyes. Walleyes, without a doubt, is probably the most sought after fish in Red Lake. Majority of the anglers that come up are all fishing for walleyes. Um, it's got awesome lake trout fishing, as we talked about, trophy northern pike fishing, but it probably gets more pressure for walleyes than any other species, and it produces a lot of walleyes, and very nice sized walleyes too. Um, there really is no secret about catching walleyes in Red Lake. I mean, every place that we've tried fishing for walleyes, we caught walleyes. Of course, some structures are probably better than other structures, but it's hard to, I can probably name couple hundred spots on here where we caught walleyes. Basically, every structure we fished, we've caught walleyes. Um, but if I had to pick the one type of structure that is most consistent for numbers and size, I would probably say the saddle situations where you have a saddle created at the entrance of a bay. I'll use this Martin Bay as another example here. When you have the deep water that's located in the bay, and you have the deep water of the main lake, and at the entrance to the bay, in most cases, not every bay, but many bays, you'll have a saddle situation here. And I would probably say that's the most consistent walleye bite that we found throughout the lake is finding these saddle situations at these entrances of these bays. And we'll find the walleyes either on the bay side of this saddle or the main basin side of this saddle. But that's probably the most consistent structure that we fish. You know, any bay, look at any bay on here. Most of the bays are going to have that saddle situation. I've used Martin Bay as an example here. You've got a couple of bays up in Pipestone where you've got that situation here. You got the same situation here at Golden Arm. You've got that situation at a couple places in Wolf. Um, you've got a situation like that over here at the entrance of St. Paul Bay, up here at Slate Bay. Uh, most of these bays, you'll have that saddle type situation, and you'll have consistent walleye action there. Other than that, fishing bars and humps. These deeper humps, you're going to find more bigger fish, not as many fish, but you'll typically find bigger fish. There's a couple of reefs out here that I fished just this past summer where I call them my big fish structures, where They're offshore. You will have pike and walleyes on them, and when you catch them, they're typically going to be bigger fish. You know, rarely will you catch a walleye under 20 inches on these kind of structures here. But you're going to catch fewer fish, but the fish you do catch are going to be bigger. Um, Boy, if I put an X on this map everywhere we've caught walleyes, you'd see X's all over this map. Um, as I mentioned, I think when I talked about the pike earlier, anywhere you have the narrows is going to be good areas for any species, especially walleyes too. This Wolf Narrows area, uh, uh, go through here with a bottom bouncer, night crawler harnesses, you'll catch a lot of walleyes. Same thing with the narrows over here. A lot of people fish, uh, catch a lot of nice walleyes throughout this area over here. Um, Again, there's been so many spots that we've caught walleyes. Every one of these reefs and islands that we found little bars coming off of, we fished, we got them. But let's get into presentation. There's really three presentations we're using catching these walleyes here. The go-to is going to be your your jig and night crawler here. I will say one thing. I am a bit stubborn. In past years, or first couple of years we went up there, I didn't use live bait. I feel you can catch them without live bait. I think it's more rewarding catching them without live bait. But Casey was always bugging me to get night crawlers. I got to tell a quick little story here. So the first year we came up here, we did okay. Each year we came up, we get better, better. But I wasn't using live bait, and we saw people around us in the evening doing really good on catching walleyes. And Casey was like, "Dad, we got to get night crawlers. They're using night crawlers." I'm like, "Yeah." I was too stubborn. So I don't know if it was the second or third year, I finally went out and got night crawlers, and I'm like, well, okay, I'm going to teach the kid a lesson, tell him that you don't need live bait to catch these walleyes, and I was wrong. He outfished me. I was just using a plastic, and he was using a night crawler chunk, half a night crawler like that, and he was outfishing me, I want to say 4-1. So ever since that year up there, we've been picking up a half a flat or a flat of night crawlers for our walleye fishing, so it can really make a difference. But don't get me wrong, though. You can always catch walleyes on plastics. Matter of fact, it wasn't that long ago that we were up there, and I was using my plastic. This brings me up. I think I mentioned this in past videos too. If you have a confidence bait, a bait that gives you confidence when you use it, by all means use it. For me, I like this siren bait. It's called the Siren. It's made by Engineering Hook Sets. I've caught so many fish everywhere I go on there. Me, it's just a confidence bait, but whatever plastic you like using, you can use it. But I was using this bait on an evening bite that Casey and I were fishing, where Casey was using a night crawler, and I was out fishing him. I was kicking his butt. I was out fishing him 4-1, 5-1. It finally got to the point where he threw on a plastic, the same plastic I was using, and started catching him too. Matter of fact, I think in one of Casey's videos on his channel, he's got that video up there where you can see it. But so we're either using a plastic or a night crawler once we locate the fish. But a good way to find these fish, this is a night crawler harness using a bottom bouncer. This is like our search bait, if you want to call it. If we're fishing a saddle area here, and this is my search bait. We're going to use the electric motor, and we're going to go slow, and we're going to work this bottom bouncer night crawler harness around the saddle on both the base side and the main side here, and that's pretty much our search bait. So if we find a hot zone or a hot area, then we'll cast to them with either the plastic or the night crawler. And when we're trolling, I'm using big crankbaits. Yes, even for the walleyes, I'm using the same big crankbaits I use for northern pike that I use for the walleyes. And I've caught like 17-inch walleyes on these big crankbaits. I mean, they're not afraid. As I said previously, I'm a big believer of big baits for big fish, and even big baits for small fish. So when I'm trolling, I'm using these big baits. Matter of fact, the biggest walleye that we caught out of Red Lake, let me pop it up here, was this 30.5-inch walleye, and that came trolling one of these big baits. Matter of fact, I would probably say, at least a third of our big walleyes, if not half of them, have come trolling big crankbaits. Well, we get a lot of them, or Casey gets a lot of them, I should say, trolling or using his night crawlers or jigs on these things. Here's, oops, let me get rid of that one there. Here's some pictures of walleyes just caught. I think, if I'm not mistaken, I think all these were caught last year actually, or within the last 2 years. Um, Most of them have been caught. Like I said, a lot of these fish were caught on night crawler harnesses or just a crawler chunk. Some of them on the crankbaits. Um, One thing I will say though, I've noticed once the walleyes get up to about 24, 25 inches, they're pretty healthy, you know, good average size walleyes. But I notice in the Red Lake system here, when they get bigger, like 26, 27, 28 inches, you can see here, they're pretty thin fish. They're still really nice looking fish, but they're pretty thin fish here. I'm not saying they're all thin, but majority of them are thin. I don't know if they change their diet, their what they feed on when they get bigger, but they don't seem to be as chunky. I will say that those walleyes caught in pipestone tend on the bigger ones tend to be a little bit heavier, bigger fish than the rest of the Red Lake system. Um, that's probably why during the fall contest you see a lot of boats go up in the pipestone. Um, but you will get some nice walleyes. Like I say, walleyes, we've caught walleyes over the entire. There isn't a place that we've gone where we did not catch walleyes. I mentioned earlier finding some walleyes off of this in front of this resort over here. That seems to be a hot spot for us. But we've used bottom bouncers around this, Mackenzie Island and just caught walleyes. If you're not sure where to go, if you're familiar or with night crawler harnesses, bottom bouncers, just go out there with that and explore some areas with that until you find the fish, and then switch over to casting position. But all the structures, in addition to these saddles for walleyes, we've caught walleyes on these, these bars, these reefs, these humps out here, pretty much everywhere. Um, and the narrows are always a good spot, like I said earlier, for the pike. They're a good spot for the walleyes too. If I had to, fish in here, the Wolf Narrows area, actually from here all the way to here, really good walleye. Fishing the West Narrows over here is good walleye. Up and through this area is very good walleye. The whole lake's really, you can get walleyes anywhere in this lake here. Actually, some of our biggest, a lot of people fish the west end for walleyes, but to be honest with you, some of our the biggest walleye we caught to date is come from the east end. So um, we've caught nice walleyes everywhere. But again, every structure has walleyes, but if I had to pick one, I would say that these saddles at the entrance of these bays is prime spots to fish. All right, going to talk about the remaining species in Red Lake. After the lake trout, northern walleye, the next species is probably smallmouth. I don't have many pictures on smallmouth, but smallmouth, again, are not native to the Red Lake system at all. They were originally found or somehow introduced in a Parker Lake, I think like roughly 20 plus years ago. And they think when there was high water one year, that several of them got across the falls over here and got into the lake. Um, the history on a smallmouth in the main lake, if you look at some of these blogs from some of these resorts, specifically Bow Narrows, I was reading back, almost 20 years back, and back in the early 2000s, like 2003, 4, 5, 6, 7, you'd hear on average, 1 to 2 smallies caught the entire year. And it pretty much stayed that way. They were rare to catch, but they were present. But something has happened in the last 5, 6, 7 years that the population just got to the point where they got a little bit more numerous, and then finally just exploded. And now it's not uncommon to catch smallmouth. Um, Casey and I really don't catch too many smallmouth because I think we're fishing a lot of main lake structures most of the time, and they haven't really, in my opinion, got out there in good numbers. But most of the walleyes that are being reported seem to be caught in shallower bay areas. I'm told that I think a lot of these bigger bays, like back in Golden Arms, supposed to have some decent smallmouth. Martin Bay on the west end of the lake here, uh, this area here, I think, has got a lot of scattered smallmouth. And we've caught them while we were walleye fishing all the way on the east end of the lake. But they seem in the last, like I say, 5, 6, 7 years, really explode their population. Now, I don't know what the long-term effect's going to be. Like I say, they're not native, and as of now, it doesn't seem to have impact the other species, specifically the walleyes. Because like I say, we're not seeing many smallmouth that we're catching because we're fishing a lot of main lake structures. But people that are fishing, back in the way back in these bays, seem to be catching most of the smallmouth. But now, at this point now, in 20, 3, 4, and I imagine this year too, that you get more and more smallmouth being caught. People are coming back catching 5, 6, 7, 8 fish a day now. It all depends. But they are getting more numerous now. I wouldn't say their population is big enough where you can specifically target them yet, but I think that day is going to come pretty soon where you can specifically target smallmouth. But they are present and you will see them caught. Another species that's present in very low numbers is muskies. Every year, each resort has 1 to 3 muskies that are caught, and they're usually small fish, like 20 inches, 24 inches, real tiny fish. I saw this picture was posted at a guest from Sunset Lodge last year. This is probably the biggest muskie picture that I've seen. It looks like pretty nice, healthy fish. I'm surprised that the pike gets so big and massive in here. I'm surprised that the muskies, no one's really popped a big muskie yet, especially when there seems to be a low population of species in a lake. They tend to get really big. But to date, I'm not aware of any really monster muskies coming out of this body of water. All right, another species that is present in very low numbers are saugers. In all my trips going up there, I've caught 2 saugers. One was about 8, 9 years ago in Wolf Bay, and we caught another sauger on the east end. I think it was somewhere around this area here. We maybe off of one of these reefs over here. But saugers are present. Like I said, I've caught 2 so far. Rock bass are also present in very low numbers. They're invasive species as well. I know a lot of people say you catch a rock bass, they want you to kill it. But I think we've caught maybe 2 rock bass total the whole time we've been fishing here. But there are a few rock bass that are present. Another species that is present that we target quite a bit are the burbots, which are also known as, they've got several names, burbot, lawyerfish, uh, ling, I think they're called. But they've got a great population of this actually in Red Lake. But the reason you don't hear much about burbots is because they're mostly night feeders, and you will catch them occasionally during the day when you're jigging for lake trout. But they're typically night biters. So if you fish it, and we're catching them in the same spots that we're catching lake trout. Wherever you're catching lake trout in that 45, 55, 60 feet of water, we go to those structures right at sunset, and right when it gets dark out, the burbot will turn on, and we've catch. It's a pretty consistent bite, to tell you the truth. I mean, we always get, we don't stay out that late. Sunset when we go up there is usually like 10:30, so it's pretty late to begin with. So we're out there from like 10:30 p.m. to about midnight, and on average, we'll catch at least a couple, sometimes 4 or 5 of these burbots. But it's a overlooked fishery. But there's, this is a real nice one here. But we've caught plenty of burbots out there. Again, to target these burbots, you got to fish at night, and we're using jigs. Yeah, I'm using the same thing I was using earlier that I showed you for the lake trout. Same bait I'm using for lake trout, I'm using for burbot. I'll keep that white twister on there. They're very ferocious, aggressive feeders, but they're bottom orientated. So I'm keeping the bait, I'm jigging, I'm bouncing this thing on the bottom. I'm just ripping it up only, like 6 inches or so. A lot of times I'm ripping it, pausing it on the bottom, letting it sit on the bottom for a few seconds and ripping it again a little bit. Um, Sometimes we've tried experimenting, since we've got all these night crawlers with us, we'll throw a chunk of meat on there. I don't know if it really makes a difference or not. They seem to hit anything. Um, Being that it's night out, we'll throw, you're not going to get, it's rare that you're going to get a lake trout at night. So we'll switch to a blade bait, with the treble hooks on there, and they'll hit the blade baits too. But the key to catching their burbot is fishing at night. The same structures, areas we're catching the lake trout in, we're catching burbot. Um, Last year we fished the east side for a few days in a row, and I wanted to catch. Unlike the lake trout, which are mostly on the west end, I know the burbot are throughout the entire system. So if you've got a deep spot, a good bar or break line in that, 45, 55, 60 feet of water, you'll get burbot here too. I was out here fishing at one of these deep spots last year, and got a nice burbot. Would have stayed longer, but it was very calm out that day, and mosquitoes were killing us. That's burbot. Another species, I think the last species to talk about here is whitefish. We've caught them in spurts out here. I mean, this is probably one of the first ones we caught several years ago. You can see how small Casey was back then. But when you do catch a whitefish out here, man, they got some massive whitefish out here. And we're catching the whitefish in the same areas, the same alongside of the lake trout down there. I caught a couple last year up in Pipestone, or the last couple of years in Pipestone. Um, but whitefish have fairly small mouths, so if you're targeting whitefish, you got to use smaller baits. It can be a little difficult because these whitefish are down at the same depths that these lakers are. We're catching them in 45, 55, 60 feet of water. So, it's hard to get a smaller bait down there. But you can run into some good white bass occasionally. I mean, whitefish occasionally. Um, Hey, another species I almost forgot to mention is lake perch. Red Lake has a pretty decent population of perch. We don't catch too many of them when I go up there fishing, and that's mostly because these perch are pretty much in these shallow bays, specifically these weedy bays. So if you want to go up there and target some perch, go in some of these shallow bays or back in the end of these bays. And if you find a weed bed, chances are you're going to find some perch around there too. Well, done with the video. It was a long video. That's why I've got it broken down into chapters. So if those of you that are planning on checking out Red Lake, staying up there for the week, I hope this video helped you in that decision and helped you out a bit. If you're a lot of people haven't been up here in many, many years, so I hope this video helps you as well. Get familiar with the lake. Leave a comment. Let me know your success or your adventures on Red Lake fishing it. And hope this video helped you. Thanks for watching.